why would he come out and say that? It just literally makes no sense for him to come out and say that we faked this moon landing.
So supposedly that video was actually filmed after the guy had already died. And so there's people saying that it's not actually him in the video. Like, it's a very close-up video that's kind of shaky. Like,
You can't really see his face.
Yeah.
He's literally said with little kids, what is the craziest thing? He goes, we didn't go.
And Trump is like giving him props and saying, we didn't credit these men landing on the moon, America first. You know, Trump is very patriotic, right?
Yeah.
So he's giving them credit. And you can see his reaction in the background. He's just like,
Welcome, everybody. This is DC Talks podcast. We are at episode 100. Woo!
100, baby. What a ride.
Yeah. So we're doing a little bit different. So we're going to do a celebratory drink. We have with us, obviously, Agent 00. It's the first and only time I'll ever call you that.
I mean, for the 100th, you got to do it for me.
Exactly. And with us as well this week, again, we have Elise coming
Hi.
back after the Diddy episode. We thought we have another great topic to talk about, which is the moon landing. So we're going to talk about that. But we can't forget about Isaac Bob in the back. So Isaac,
Thank you for all your hard work and all your dedication, man. Got to give you your
gotta give the props.
Your props, man.
Hey, you only screwed up one time when you weren't here.
Yes.
When you weren't here.
When you're here.
So before we get into this, so Isaac for my birthday got us this bottle. I said, listen, we're not going to open this bottle until it's episode 100. So we're episode 100. We're going to have a drink. Isaac's going to come around from the background, have a drink with us, and then we'll get it started in this beautiful episode.
I'm so excited. Oh, I thought you were going to like actually pop.
No, I don't want to break anything in my ceiling, man.
There's a marble table here.
Yeah, exactly. So pass me the glasses here. I'll get you guys some drinks.
In our wine glasses.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, we didn't have
Okay.
at the DC Talks.
The
gotta
budget
come
didn't
on
allow.
camera.
We didn't have the budget for champagne glasses, unfortunately.
I could have bought them from
So,
home.
thank you to all of our listeners and viewers that keep subscribing. We really appreciate this. I don't think we've come across enough to say how much we absolutely love all your content, your sharing, your likes, because we really couldn't do this without you. So we hope you've enjoyed the journey, seeing us going sometimes through some downward spirals, talking about topics.
On the steam
I am
bag.
breaking my fast today with the champagne glass. So congratulations,
Let's go.
everybody. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers to us for 100.
100. Cheers.
Oh.
Ooh, rosé.
Very nice. Very nice.
So anyway,
All right, so let's get into the ball rolling. So
DC, what are we talking about today, man?
I said before, we're talking about the moon landing. More specifically, I think the fake moon landing. I should put a little more in there. We might as well get a
Oh,
little
yeah,
bit.
yeah. This, yeah,
But
notice your-
let's make it a little more sauce, as we said there. Like,
you gotta weigh your beak a little bit, you know?
So,
I don't know why we're trusting me with pouring.
yeah, I don't know why either. So throughout the years, guys, we've you've noticed we like to when we record 4 podcasts, we like to do at least one conspiracy theory or a little more risque topic. And today, Isaac and I have been talking. Owen and I have been talking about this topic for a while, and we've been sharing some TikToks back and forth.
Yeah.
We're just trying to figure out where to fit this in because topics have popped up, which we wanted to discuss beforehand. But this has been in our docket for a while. And the reason why it keeps coming up is like I keep seeing things, we talked about flat earth before, and this kind of plays into that because we've been taught one thing since the beginning of time. And when you push against a narrative of anything that people believe, there's always some pushback, right? And I know we always grew up learning the certain things and we just believe it as its face value. And listen, I commend my clients and my audience about that too, because, we were taught certain things in schools, we were memorized, and that's what we believe. But, there's a certain time beforehand that not everybody believed that. And this is one of those topics. So I always believed, we had Neil Armstrong, Lander in the Moon, Buzz Aldrin, exactly. But there's been some stuff, when I started getting conspiracy theories, this thing kept popping up, moon landing. Now, Elise, are you familiar? I know today you started researching stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Were you before today?
No, so I had seen a video on YouTube probably a good 6 or 7 years ago, kind of debunking the moon landing and basically pointing out key elements in the video that lead it to believe that it is a hoax. So I kind of go back and forth, to be honest. There are things that have been disproven, and there are a good 400,000 people that have been involved in this. So it's why has there not been any kind of whistleblower
Mm-hmm.
to that extent? But then there's also, I don't know, there's points
I
back
know,
and
there's
forth.
a lot of
So I'm
polls.
kind of, I'm on the
So,
fence.
so the problem I have with the moon landing as a hoax is that the rest of the world had to buy in. Unless they did it too. Like, so which means Russia, which like the reason why I guess the US wanted to go to the moon is like because Russia was doing it first, so they're getting in, so they wanted to be beforehand. Well, if it wasn't true, then why hasn't Russia said like, this is not true, we didn't, or like why has that not happened, right? Or why is the rest of the world saying, oh yeah, it's actually happened, right? Now, what led me down kind of these conspiracy theories is like we all believe what we were told. Oh, Neil Armstrong, all this stuff too, Apollo 13, and all this stuff like there's all these movies about how they didn't make it to the moon and blah blah blah. But then what I came across that I was trying to explain to you is like, do you guys know who Stanley Kubrick is, right?
Yep.
So the filmmaker Stanley Kubrick was actually killed after Eyes Wide Shut because he, in my opinion, was killed because he talked in Eyes Wide Shut. There's 20 minutes which is left out of the movie because it's talking about the lead of the sacrifices on the sex orgies that they have. And he would not remove that 20%, so the 20 minutes. And he miraculously died sort of after, and then they removed the 20, and then they never came to light because apparently he was showing too much. And he was always a whistleblower. So I was asking if you guys see this video, and I was trying to show this on the big screen, but we can overplay this. But I'll play this for you right now. This is it's a short video.
Tell me about the machine. So, was it difficult? I mean, committing the race fraud, what you want to call it? Okay, I know. So I'm thinking more of you're eating this huge, ambitious, technical landing. But was it hard to do the other one? Was it very difficult? I mean, what was the experience like? Artistically, practically, emotionally, what was it like? Harder than 2001. So did 2001 was harder than
Odyssey, to this up.
what did you learn things on 2001? Yes. I mean, it's 2001 very ambitious. And that's not to say that big moon landing was not ambitious. But, I learned things making 2001, which was I got this key in the first place. Right. Foundations. So when we went straight for me because, well, first of all, I didn't think a whole lot about the morality of it, as I said.
So he goes on. It's a whole conversation. This is a little snippet. He basically talks about, and they're saying, well, he was drunk to the time. He doesn't know what he's talking about. There's always people trying to debunk everything. Anytime it's like, so why would he come out and say that? Right? Oh, sorry. Like it just literally makes no sense for him to come out and say that we faked this moon landing.
So supposedly that video was actually filmed after the guy had already died. And so there's people saying that it's not actually him in the video because it was filmed like after him dying.
Okay.
And I mean, I will say like it's a very close up video that's kind of shaky. Like
You
I
can't
don't
really
know.
see his face.
Yeah, like to me
Yeah.
that video is kind of like.
Okay, so which is great. So like, okay, so maybe, and this is right lead to the second video I'm going to show you now. So Buzz Aldrin, right? Supposed to be landing on the moon.
Yep.
If you saw his interview with Conan O'Brien,
I did.
It's coming up. So I'm going to play for the audience. I don't know if they've seen this one.
Okay. That's a legal passport, driver's license.
And I'm Uncle Coney tonight. Let's talk about this because this is fascinating. I remember very clearly. I think anybody who's alive at the time does. I remember my parents waking me up and we went down. We watched you guys land on the moon, which was what?
Because there wasn't any television. There wasn't anybody taking a picture. You watched animation. So you associated what you saw or
I have very hazy memories. Well, what we saw was we all were gathered around.
He has said this multiple times, and Melvin shows that we never landed there. He didn't even say it was animated. He goes, we didn't. He's literally said with little kids, what is the craziest thing? He goes, we didn't go.
Even when Trump was doing it, was inaugurating, I think there's a huge cabinet he was talking to, and he was in the background, and Trump is like giving him props and saying, we did credit these men landing on the moon, America first. Trump is very patriotic, right?
Yeah.
So he's giving them credit. And you can see his reaction in the background. He's just like,
Yeah,
like
I
he's
saw
so
that one too.
embarrassed, like because I think he can't live with the fact that he's been living a lie for the past 50 years or so of his life, like thinking people that tell you, oh yeah, you landed on the moon, but he knows he's a fraud.
Yeah, and listen, guys, we encourage you. I'm showing you YouTube videos. This is not
No.
us saying this again. This is not us being crazy. This is stuff we found.
This is material on
This
the
is
internet.
material. Go in and say about Buzz Aldrin. That took me 2 seconds to find that video.
Yeah.
There's multiple videos of him saying we were talking to little kids. Saying
Yeah,
we
the
did- and they're-
8-year-old,
the 8-year-old
girl
girl.
interviewed him and said, "What's the craziest thing about being on the moon?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know, never been there." Couldn't
Convincing
tell
you, convincing
Like,
you that we went. You know,
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
the craziest thing. So it brings us back to this. It's like, so okay, like there's all these inconsistencies we're saying about this. He's kind of saying that, like, well, why do we believe it? And why did the rest of the world buy into this?
Well, I think because if you really look at it at the time, right? So when was Apollo 11? Was it
1969.
1969, right? What happened in the 60s? That's when the Antarctic Treaty was formed, because when Admiral Byrd, I don't know if you know who Admiral Byrd is, at least, but he actually went into the North Pole and he actually discovered more land. So what that meant was that there was more motivation to formulate this heliocentric model of what the world is all about. And what the whole world is about is this, okay, there's a sun and there's the moon. And if we're living on this ball, we can actually go to the moon and actually prove that there's actually more planets, which are physical planets, and the moon was the most successful one. So when they did that, it was more to push the agenda of we live on this, and it goes back to the whole flat earth theory, that we live on this heliocentric
Always
model.
back to the flat Earth theory.
Because honestly, because that's the nucleus of it all. It's just like we're living on this ball, the moon and the sun, and we can actually go to the moon. So Russia, the DC, you're mentioning the reason why Russia isn't going to say anything, because if they expose this, it's going to make the entire concept of what we know and what we live and where we live completely obsolete.
I think it might have been part of the Antarctica Treaty as well that they
Yeah.
did this up, because there's a lot of lies. So if you don't know what the Antarctica Treaty is, there's a treaty. It's the only treaty in the world where everybody, almost all the nations, have agreed that nobody can fly to Antarctica. And now there's people.
Yeah,
I've heard
weird.
people yell, push, like, "I've been to Antarctica." I'm like, "You've been on guided tours."
Yeah.
You're allowed to go to
Just
Antarctica.
certain
There's no
places.
fly zones in certain areas. There are certain spots you can't go. Yes, you can go to Antarctica, but you have to get certain permissions to get there. Yes, you can go there. So just because you had an experience at a certain small spot doesn't mean you've seen all of Antarctica and what it all looks like. You haven't seen the walls. You haven't seen the blue ice. I don't know if you know what blue
Yeah.
ice is. Google that if you know. Blue ice is like, anyway, it's what apparently surrounds our whole Earth and stuff. That's not me saying this. This is people that have tried to
Actually,
test
facts.
blue ice. Google blue ice and Antarctica and what it is. I don't need to go into that because you think I'm crazy again about this. Because it might not even have to do with flat Earth if you don't believe that, but I'm saying Google that. But yeah, but I believe it is part of that too. So there was another video which I didn't find any. It was, they were talking about like conspiracy theories about the moon landing, and he said, goes, well, I don't understand how the rest of the world. He goes, if this was actually fake, why is the rest of the world believe? I'm like, well, why is Antarctica? I think must have been something put there on there, and it's like, I think they're all in on it.
Yeah, even to mention on that, Antarctica, you can go 90th degree south parallel through like the tropic of, so there's like the tropic, there's the equator, and there's a tropic of Capricorn and everything. So once you go past a certain degree of the Antarctica, you can actually but you can actually see the wall, like the dome and everything. You can actually go through the ice wall and you can actually see more land behind that. So that's why they actually let you see part of Antarctica, which is like the penguins and everything like
That's what I was
that.
gonna say. I just want to go to Antarctica
Yeah,
to see a penguin.
but there's
Aren't they cute?
but once
They're
you
the
go through a certain period, like there's actually military bases, they can't let you go any further because it's actually going to debunk the whole lot. Kind of
But
remind me,
like, who says that though?
at least this is actually facts. You can't go.
I know. Okay, I know you can't fly over Antarctica. Like,
Yeah.
there's certain places. I get that. But like, who's actually been like, yeah, I've seen the wall. Hee hee. Like, there's stuff behind it. Like, I don't know.
Well, there's actually been people that
Everything-
said that they've seen like civilizations and all this stuff too. Like, listen, now we're getting to other things. So it's like, well, what's the credibility of these people? I don't know.
Yeah.
And at a certain level, it's like, we're talking about the moon landing. We're not going to talk about
I
like,
know,
yeah.
we're gonna go on a tangent. I get it.
But the thing is, the moon is related to the whole flat Earth thing because the moon as itself isn't even a solid; it's a plasma. You cannot land on the moon. The moon is liquid.
Right.
It's not physical.
So, which brings me
it's
a
a
couple of
luminary.
things.
That's
So-
what it is.
So it brings me a couple of things, right? Now, if the moon is not, like, say the moon is the moon like they said it is, it's full of rock, right? First off, explain to me why, when they landed on the moon, right? The president, I think it was Nixon at the time, was able to use a regular phone,
A landline.
a landline,
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
and to talk to the astronaut.
It's
Yeah.
impossible.
It's impossible,
How
right?
can you?
So that first of all, that didn't make any
We
sense.
didn't have the technology back then. Period. Point
The
blank.
second thing is the technology that went to the moon is apparently less than the technology we're holding in our hands.
Exactly.
Can you see that
So-
thing, that rover on the moon? Like, how do you?
Oh,
get
I've
that?
seen that. Like, don't even. That's a joke.
That looks like I make that in my garage for a class project.
But so think about it this way. So the technology you have in your phone is more powerful than the technology that they put. Was it whenever they landed on the moon? 1967. What year was it?
1969.
1969. Okay. Now, when that guy interviewed, you've seen the interview, like saying, like, well, what happened to the footage? First of all, NASA's saying that the footage has been erased,
Oh yeah, NASA said the footage is
and we no longer have the same technology to get to the moon. What the fuck are you talking about?
How do you lose technology?
I know.
Well, first of all,
It is true.
you have this supposed to be the greatest achievement of mankind, apparently going out of the stratosphere. You're going on the moon and you record over some porn or something like that, or some kids like T-ball fucking league? What did you recorded footage of this shit too? And then that makes no fucking sense. Then on top of that, you're trying to tell me we no longer have the technology. You're just told me over here, this is the same technology. We don't have anything more powerful than a phone. You're trying to tell me NASA, which is scammers. You're trying to tell me NASA, you don't have the technology to go to the moon. Bullshit. Like
Bullshit.
that. If you can't see through that fucking bullshit, you're more naive. Like you should just live in put your head in the sand and just have 14,000 vaccines and go fucking and live with a whole bunch of GMOs and get
DC.
and wear diapers the rest of your life.
How-
I don't give a shit. This is bullshit.
How is my camera there when you land? Talk to me about that.
yeah. So,
Like,
we talked about this
surely,
too.
surely, how's your camera there when you land?
So you land on the moon, and before the first step for mankind, the first whatever the first leap for man, first step for man, for mankind, all this bullshit. Who's recording that fucking
Who's
shit?
recording it?
Who's recording the guy jumping on the like Neil Armstrong
It's
jumping
supposed
on
to
there?
be like on a camera, like kind of like a selfie stick.
They
sort
didn't
of
have
thing.
those back then.
So supposedly they did.
How do you have the reception up
Well,
there?
then can you
either?
explain to me
That's,
this?
I know the reception thing. I do understand.
That's what I'm saying. That thing looks like I made that for a class
But
project.
forget about that. They're supposed to be on the moon here. Where's their helmets?
LA? We're up and
They're,
on that.
yeah, they're
in a
not on the
vacuum.
moon there. Is that actually?
I know.
saying
This is
that
one of the
they're
things that
supposed to be
people are
on the moon?
debunking. Apparently, the picture that they have of there's all these astronauts. and
How did
NASA's
they
wearing-
get that on space with a spaceship?
There's so many things that make.
You know what I'm saying?
Have you seen? So, here's the other thing too. Like, so the whole thing with floating space, there's no such thing as no gravity is another thing, right? So it's like it's floating into space as you get to the asteroid. It's supposed to be bullshit. So, I know this is going to be funny for like, people who haven't seen this before. Google about like how astronauts train.
In a pool.
Apparently, and in that they film these training sessions. Guess where they film?
In a pool.
In a pool.
In a poolas.
They film in a pool where they're weightless, and that's why things are floating around, all that stuff too. And then they said, well, we're not using that footage as, walking on the moon or space landing, all that stuff too. But yet, many of these videos have air bubbles in
How
their
do you have
videos.
bubbles in space?
There's supposed to be no air in space. How are you supposed to have an air bubble in space?
Well, then you could say the no air thing about the flag. Like when they put the flag in, the
There
flag
you go.
flows in the wind, and you're like,
Okay, for those people who don't understand that, so at least you made a good point. I was also had that point. What are you talking about the flag?
well, the flag when they put it into the moon, it sways back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if there's no air, there's nothing to make it sway.
It should be laying down. Like
Exactly.
This. Yeah.
And NASA has said that, like it was crumpled up in a box somewhere. And when they took it out, it's just trying to go back to like its original form. Like,
It's a piece of cloth.
exactly. Like you crumple a flag, it's not going back to its original
No.
Did you
form.
not see and apparently did you just look at the shadow on her too? That also doesn't make sense.
How you have a shadow, like if there's no light, but the moon is a light in itself, where's the shadow coming from?
Underneath the shadows, it was daytime.
On the moon.
Yeah.
Isaac is saying there's a shadow on the moon.
Because there's a daytime. You say there's daytime, but again, that's also been debunked. I heard that too because that doesn't make any sense. And like it's just where's the light side of the moon, like the dark side of the sun,
With the craters. Well,
But
they said
also,
there's
if
the
you,
craters.
if you look at the video, like the shadow moves around all the time. So at one point in the video, it's behind him. At one point, it's beside him. So that's more key to that there's a studio light hanging down over you and you're going to get the shadow. Like we have lights here, right? You're going to get those shadows. Whereas if the sun's there and the moon's there, the shadow's going to be behind you regardless. Daytime or not, the shadow should be behind you, in my opinion.
What's that thing they say that the moon gets its light from the sun?
Yeah.
Right? So let's talk about that, right? So if, according to the heliocentric model, right, the sun is way bigger than the moon, right? And we have what you call it, the eclipses how often they happen? Like 40 years, every 40 years.
Well, there's certain eclipses that happens in like periodically. It's not just,
Periodically, right?
It's not full eclipses. Like, there are different types of eclipses, but
So this thing is getting the light accordingly from the sun. Then we're being told that Earth is spinning, what is 60,000 miles per hour. So we're launching a spaceship. We're spinning, right, into outer orbit. And some way, somehow, we know precisely how to land this thing on a piece of rock out in space. A rocket is going up vertically, right? And you're spinning. So think about it, like, at least you're in a car.
Oh, by the way, the Earth is supposed to spin between 55 to 66,000 miles per hour.
And we don't even feel it. So we're spinning.
It's supposed to be, supposedly.
So if everything, like, look at it, this thing is sitting flat like this, right? So if this thing is spinning 60,000 miles per hour, right? How do you get the accuracy of a rocket to time this spinning ball to go up into space, land smoothly, and then get out? Like, the accuracy.
So if I'm spinning like this, if I have anything on there, but I put a little bolo on anything spinning, eventually it just shoots out.
Right.
We never know what's going to go. I'm like,
But
like,
supposedly it was like a drop down descent where it like took a very long time to go like all the way down and like calmly went down the 10,000 pounds of whatever the lunar, whatever the hell it's called. And that's why there's no craters and that's why there's no dust, because it just slowly landed, which
the thing.
and did you hear, speaking of craters and moon, did you hear like people debunked what the moon rocks? They found it was not what they actually said it was. Did you hear about all the bullshit?
No, what was that?
Oh yeah, there was a whole thing about saying like, have you actually, they're saying they brought moon rocks back from the moon.
Yeah.
And people were like, it's like regular stones and stuff mixed together with all, like, it was man-made. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's surprise, right? Like, so to me, there's just not enough consistency going on over it. Like, there's just so many questions, right? Like, so you have one of the astronauts that told you he never landed on the moon. You have a famous director telling you he's faked the moon landing. You have shadows, which make no sense. You have people taking off helmets that make no sense. You have air bubbles, make no sense. Can somebody please make sense?
And then you
Yeah.
have a man like Werner von Braun
Oh yeah.
telling you that he puts Psalms 19:1 on his grave, saying that
Do you remember what it says? You have to look at the KJV. So what I did is
King James version of the
King
Bible.
James version of the Bible. And if you go to Psalms 19:1, then I'll read it to you.
DC, as you're bringing that up, I just want to mention one thing. I
If you love me, I love you too, buddy.
I love you too, Brett. I love you too, Elise.
Love you
But
too,
the thing
bud.
is, right, the cognitive dissonance between people to not really let go of their current reality or what could be possibly true is what really fascinates me.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are being presented with evidence, and I want to get you guys' take on this. Like, why do you think people get presented with hardcore evidence that could alter what they've known their entire lives to possibly know, okay, this is what reality is? Do you guys think that people are so comfortable living in a fake?
I don't think it's comfortable. It's what they know, right?
Because we know a lot of people who still believe this moon landing
So
happened.
I
But like the
Well,
psychology of them.
well, because I think people believe in the moon landing just because no one's actually had this conversation with them. This is why we're doing this conversation. Because up until a few years ago, I didn't know about this stuff. I never really looked into it. I never thought about it. Because honestly, it's not like people are actively going, I'm putting my head in the sand. Some people would. But I don't think most people are actively going, hey, listen, I don't want to believe this. Because I don't think people like, what do you mean the moon
But
landing?
you see, let me get in there real quick as you continue that. But the thing that it's interesting to get so defensive when you challenge that notion of that it didn't happen. But why are they so like loyal to that narrative?
Well, because, and I said this before, is because this is something they taught. They've been told as being gospel. It's something you believe in your life. It's hard to change beliefs. You got to remember, right? Whether you're believing in a flat Earth or you're believing of the global thing, it's a religion. The global, it's a religion.
movement.
It's a move. So to believe that the Earth is flat and that there is a fake moonlight, you're going to piss off a lot of people. And at this point is like, like there's so much evidence both ways. Like some people like there's evidence, and I said this before, like I had a conversation at my cousin's wedding, and a guy's like, I've never been a flat earther before. I'm like, that's great. Like, I never was a flat earther. And I was like, up until about a year, maybe a year and a bit ago, I started looking at the research of what people were saying. And I was like, okay, I'm starting to get this, I'm starting to understand. At least I opened up my mind to it. I was like, okay, because if I looked at anything and I said, oh, and I'm like, this is not what I believe, I shut it off. Because remember, your brain, first of all, your brain always looks for things. Well, I've said this in my Motivational Monday. Your brain is looking for things to confirm your beliefs. So if your belief is that the earth is round, your brain's going to look for certain things that are flat. You're going to dismiss anything that's false. Right. Like 100% it's confirmation bias. So when you see somebody has a different belief than you, your mind obviously switches and says, you're full of shit. You're crazy. You must be crazy. You must be this.
You defend it.
Because your brain some people's brain can't comprehend because they're not open. It takes some time to open. You can't just throw a huge theory in their face and say,
and expect them to believe it, right?
Exactly. So I think one of the reasons that helped me along the way with conspiracy theories and started to believe some of the stuff in here was that we had a great teacher. His name was Mr. Narducci, and he was my OAC, algebra teacher. And we would sometimes talk about the JFK assassination and the contra. Like at that time, like I'm 18 years old, 19 years old, and we didn't know. We knew everything was textbook. We thought everything was textbook.
Yeah.
And then we had a teacher, somebody we trusted. Oh shit! Somebody trusted going, hey, by the way, the Earth isn't exactly what you think it is. The media isn't. And so you're 18 years old, you're impressionable, and you're just like, so that helped open up my mind. Not everybody had a Mr. Narducci.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and I don't say to this in a bad way. It's just like, like we just have people that are just like, they're not, I think, actively trying to say like, hey, like, I don't want to believe in this shit.
Yeah.
I just think that their brain is just not ready for it. It's maybe too hard for that event.
But then why are some people's brains ready for it and other people aren't?
Because I think they've taken little things at a time, saying, okay, they started looking at research. Like, for example, we talked about Disney. By the way, some of my videos got banned from TikTok because they wouldn't let me talk about Disney.
Yeah, guidelines were taken down.
Anyway, but I was just like, maybe they started to see little things in Disney and like, okay, I can get that. And then they jump a little. It's like drugs. Think about it, right? Nobody turns into a fucking crack whore overnight unless you're doing,
It takes time.
there are certain drugs. Unless you're heroin, apparently you're addicted right in the first shot. But I'm saying most of the time, people turn into a drug addict over a period of time. Well, so I think the same thing happens with their minds. It's like you don't just go from conservative to like a conspiracy theorist, or you don't go from a liberal to a conspiracy theorist overnight just because somebody presented something to you. It takes some time for your brain to first of all, to adjust to the new reality. You got to remember, it's a belief system, something that you grew up with that she's going to sneeze 15 times.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to hold it in.
That we've gone through a certain period of time, right? So it takes some time, Owen. It takes some time. And that's the idea of the podcast. We've been told, like when we did the flat earth stuff, like the amount of names I've been called and like whether, and like, listen, at the end of the day, I'm like, but did you actually listen? We didn't say anything. We brought up evidence from other people. From here, I'm bringing up videos from this. I'm like, we're asking the questions. Was the moon landing real? If so, why is this? Why is there no answers to these things? Right? And now we're going back to von Braun, right?
Werner von Braun, yeah.
Yeah, Werner von Braun. So he was a Nazi brought to the U.S., right, to start up NASA. And, so there's controversy what NASA believes. Some people even believe to deceive. There's other people say, well, it's not the actual right interpretation of the Hebrew. Anyway, long story short is NASA is not, if your brain is open, if you research NASA, they're not who they say they are. But on his tombstone, if you look at the KJV, the King James Version Bible, it has to be that one or something similar to that. In Psalms 19:1, it says, why would you put this on your tombstone unless you believe this? The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. What he's saying there is that he's believing in God, and he's showing that the world is a firmament, and it's showing God's handiwork. It's a closed system. This is one of the creators of NASA. If he didn't believe this, what he's telling you right in front of your face that he doesn't even believe in the globalist theory. Creator of NASA is telling you, we're pulling a full, and you have to do some research. He's not going to go out and say the Earth is flat. But if you had enough, if you had enough insight to go and look, what is this guy talking about?
You know what's interesting too, is how a guy like Buzz Aldrin and also Werner von Braun, even in their final days, they have to let the truth some way, somehow, right? They can't live in this like way that, okay, I'm holding on this lie that everyone is just
Yeah.
induced with. Like, you gotta die in peace. And I think that's what they're trying to do. I think what Buzz Aldrin is trying to do is, okay, I'm trying to expose the truth so I can actually let go of that guilt I've been living with forever. And I think that's what Warren von Braun was trying to do.
But I also think that there's all the satanic Bible and the satanic ways. Like, if I tell you what you're doing and you still don't believe it, I'm like, I get the power by telling you in front of plain light what I'm going to do. But it's up to you. Like, it's part of the satanic agenda, right? It's
It's the law of retribution, I think it's what.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I got to tell you what I'm going to do before actually doing
right.
it so I don't get.
That's
get
why
that
the Satanists do
karmic
everything in
retribution.
plain sight, right? They
Yeah.
do all the symbols, and it's like, oh, you thought it was a joke. You thought it was art. You thought it was this. And it's like, in reality, I'm like, I was serious.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you didn't know I was serious? That's not on me. That's on you. And it's the same idea. Sorry.
At least-
to cut you off.
No. I was gonna say. I was just gonna argue the point, like, of the 400,000 people that have like worked on the moon landing. Why haven't they come out and said anything? Like, you're saying that.
Then they worked on it.
Yeah, like the people that like helped set it up. You know, like I'm not an aerospace engineer by any means, but like the engineers and the different people that like built the rocket and did all this shit. If it was fake, and I'm not saying it is or isn't, but if it was, why haven't these 400,000 people come
I
out
have two theories on that.
and said, guys, this is it?
One, they actually didn't know it was fake.
Okay.
They went through the motions. They probably thought what they were doing was real.
At the space
Okay.
station.
I think so. Yeah, maybe they actually thought what they did was real. Maybe they're seeing what they're seeing on the screen. They thought was real. Maybe they thought the controllers, okay, somebody's talking to their side. Maybe they thought what was going on was real.
Fair.
You saw about and then remember the 80s where there was that, we were all watching TV with that rocket ship
No,
blew
I
up.
wasn't alive.
So there was a rocket ship that blew up, and there was like 11 astronauts around there too. And there's a space we were all supposed to watch on TV. There's school teachers, everything was on there too. Every single one of those people have either a twin or somebody else the same name. They didn't die, apparently. There's a whole thing. Like,
Still living.
right? It's all, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I know.
I forget I forget what Apollo was. It was in the 80s. There was rockets, but apparently when it went up, they exploded. And everybody on the ship died. But now, if you Google all their names, they either have a twin that's exactly the same, like the name is just changed, or they have the same name, and they're just like, and it looks exactly the same as them, and they're like, and they're not even hiding that the people didn't actually die.
Right.
So the people that were involved, they're all crying because they thought that this ship blew up, but it could have just been production. So you got to remember,
Okay, yeah.
there might not have been people on the ground. The second thing you also have to realize, which ties into this thing, in order to be an astronaut, do you know what you have to be?
A scientist?
A great swimmer.
Nope. There's a degree. There's
A Mason. You're a Masonic.
you have to be a 33-degree Freemason.
Really?
Yeah. They all have the regalia. All of a sudden, like they all and we. If
all
you
do
talked
their
about
handshake.
if you went back to our last conspiracy theory that we talked about too, remember it's the satanic order at the highest degree. You have to be the highest degree, so you know what you're doing. Buzz
Right.
Aldrin is a 33-degree Freemason.
But like,
Neil Armstrong, all of them,
for what point? Like,
to deceive the world, honey.
I know, but like for like.
Why are they
like
doing
why?
it?
Like for what?
So
It's
what's
control.
the order? Who's the god that
About
that the Masons bow down to? Who do they pray to?
The
I
Baph-
don't know.
Baphomet,
Baphomet.
Okay.
which is the
I
devil.
know
That's the
nothing.
devil, the
Okay.
Baphomet.
Gotcha.
So his job is to deceive the world, to take them away from God.
Okay.
That's the Masons, the 33 degrees Freemasons. If you don't believe me, read Alexander Pike's book about how, and which was never supposed to be read by the population, but the Masonic order and their true God and who he is. And if you know what the Masonic order actually is meant to do, it is to deceive the public and to bring them to Satan's order. That is the true. And I think it makes me laugh is there's all these people that are they're honorary 33 degree Freemasons. They have no idea about this. But the true Masons, the ones that actually are moving the earth, know this, and they are deceiving their own people, their own
Yeah.
brotherhood. So they will have Ponzi's in their order. We have family members that are in the Masonic order. Well, family members of family members. I can't go and say who they are. And now they left the order, but they were in the order and they're like, oh, it's fine. It's just a boys club. We just go there and drink. We just kind of like hang out with a whole bunch of, it's good for business and stuff too. They don't even understand the real meaning. They don't even have the handbook. They don't have the real meaning behind that. And why is that? Well, for money. They get to give the money. They keep influence. They're growing the brotherhood. And little by little, they're taking away God from them. Little by little. And they don't even realize what's happening. They're exchanging. It's not like they're selling their soul. They understand
You're
that.
stuck in a trance.
Just in the little by little. Well, continue with the Masonic order.
But like, again, like why? Like, sorry, but like, who gives a shit? Like,
If you don't understand, we're in a spiritual war by now.
no, I get that. Okay, that I do understand. But I just mean like it's the same thing about the Earth being round, flat, square, hexagonal. Like,
So-
I don't give two shits.
Well, it's easy.
It doesn't
So we said this
affect me
before.
in
The
my
reason-
everyday life.
The reason why the Earth needs to be round and that we should come from evolution is to directly combat what's said in the Bible. And if that little story, a small story like that, is not true, the rest of the Bible is not true, and the whole foundation of Jesus Christ
False. Yeah.
is also false. It's also a fairy tale. It's as soon as you put a chink in one piece of armor, it's easy to let it spread.
Right.
Yeah. And I feel like the moon is local. The sun and the moon is local. You know how they say it's like millions and millions of miles away? I don't think that's true. There's people who are flying on a plane and they're looking at the sun and they're like, that thing doesn't look like it's
not.
millions of miles away. That thing is like right here.
Yeah, and there's actually pictures of it too being closer and everything. It's just, oh, that's another topic.
It's another topic.
We had a minute left, I think, Owen. We have less than a minute before our memory cards run out.
But to me, like one thing I just want to share with you guys, I just think it's fascinating how the indoctrination has seeped into everyone. And the thing is, I also got to give myself grace, how to view grace, because I was that too. So I cannot sit here and be like, Rob, like, look at you lot. You guys are so caught up in this thing, because I was there too. So I was fortunate to come out of that.
And what did I say about the flat Earth stuff? I didn't start believing until about a year ago. So I was naive. I was one of them. And I just thought when
I don't think I'll ever believe there. This
well, what was it?
I don't think you're gonna get me there,
What
guys.
was the basketball? The
You're gonna
basketball
get me
player, the meta guy. Meta World Peace. We start talking about it. I'm like, this guy's fucking crazy. Why would I believe anything he says? But it's like, and now you're starting like, yeah, Kyrie Irving is another one too. Oh, anyway. All right. Well, we unfortunately have to
on
write
and on and on.
Listen, at least one of these days, you will, once you don't have, when your kids are grown, you have more time on your hands, you can sit back and like look at the stuff we've talked about and do, like, I'm just saying, maybe you want to do on your research on your own. We'd love that, because we always like push back in a sense that, you know, not calling negative names or anything like that, but I'm always open to learn more stuff on what other people think. I think it's
Sure.
a great way to learn. You can't have a closed mind. Even for us, if you believe one thing, I always keep an open mind to the globalists, because I'm saying, well, can you explain this to me? Can you explain this to me? And maybe I'll learn something too. And I think just because you believe one thing doesn't mean you have to have a closed mind to other things. So I think it's a healthy relationship for other people to push it back and forth, and maybe you both can learn.
Yeah, it's healthy to have a debate and have
And that's why I
difference
think
of
this
opinions.
landing stuff like that is great, because there's a lot of questions we have. I don't think any of them is solved. I don't think NASA's going to call up and say, here's the real answer. But I also want we also want to wrap up and say, listen, we'd love for you to do your own research. What are we missing here? Don't call us crazy, but back it up.
can call us crazy.
You can call us crazy, but I'd love to figure, like, have some backup finder. Well, why do you believe what you believe? Here's some of the stuff we've showed you. Like, why does this make sense? Why did he say this? And I would love to hear for that. So, on wrapping up on our 100th episode, thank you again, the four of you, or the four of us, I should say, for us. Thank you.
The four of you
Three of you.
that are watching.
I've had too much wine with nothing in my system. We want to say thank you again for following 100th episode for us. I think it's gone most podcasts don't last past 10 episodes. So I'm very
Yeah, you
gracious
guys
we're
did
able to
good.
do this.
We actually did 100.
Yeah, awesome.
Who'd have thought?
Thanks. Well,
good.
good that my producer didn't have confidence we get to 100. Anyway, guys,
Isaac's telling you,
listen,
you
we
gotta
need to wrap
up.
up.
Let's go.
Always like, share, and follow us along on Instagram and YouTube.
And subscribe.
And subscribe. Bye.
Bye.